When it comes to Chase credit cards, you can get thousands of dollars in cash back and travel if you know what you're doing. Avoiding obvious mistakes like late payments and interest fees is definitely important. But there are other less obvious mistakes that could stop you from getting extremely valuable rewards from Chase. In this video, I'll show you the top 7 Chase credit card mistakes that people make all the time and how you can avoid them. So let's get started. Mistake number 1 is choosing the wrong Sapphire card. Both the Sapphire Preferred and the Sapphire Reserve are some of Chase's best credit cards. And you can only hold one Sapphire card at a time. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you can product change between these two credit cards. Which means, for example, you could sign up first for the Sapphire Preferred, and then after at least a year, you can upgrade to the Sapphire Reserve. This is important because the welcome offer is often very different on the two cards. The Sapphire Preferred ranges from 60, even upwards of 100,000 points at a time. However, in recent years, I've only ever seen the Sapphire Reserve as high as 60,000 points. And for a long time, it was only a 50,000 point welcome offer. So while the benefits are very nice on the Sapphire Reserve, I'll often recommend people go for the Sapphire Preferred when it has a higher welcome bonus. Right now, as I'm filming this video, the Sapphire Preferred has an 80,000 point welcome offer, and the Sapphire Reserve has a 60,000 point offer. Most people who are experienced in the travel game will value these Chase points at 2 cents per point, meaning that 80,000 point offer is worth $1,600 and the 60,000 point offer is worth $1,200. So going with the Sapphire Preferred first could get you around $400 in travel more than getting the Sapphire Reserve. And after just 1 year of having the card, you could upgrade it to the Reserve and have those reserve benefits that you want anyway. So all other things equal, I would choose the welcome bonus that gives me the most free travel in the first year. And that's almost always the Sapphire Preferred. There's actually another way you can take this strategy even further. Chase has a rule that basically says you can only get one of the Sapphire welcome bonuses within 48 months. But this means once you've had either of the cards for at least 4 years or 48 months, you can downgrade the card you have and sign up for another Sapphire Preferred or Reserve and get that new welcome bonus. You can downgrade either of the Sapphire cards into a no annual fee Freedom card, and I would just make sure you wait at least 30 days before applying for your next Sapphire card. And in the long run, this will likely get you a lot more free travel than just signing up for the Sapphire Reserve 60,000 point offer and holding that till the end of time. Mistake number 2 is not understanding Chase's application rules. There's some very well-known rules like 524 and some other lesser known rules that are more soft guidelines that you'll also want to know about. One of the most important Chase application rules to understand is 524. You might have heard of this before, but basically it says if you've been approved for 5 or more personal cards from any issuers within the last 24 months, you cannot get approved for a new Chase credit card. And this means your options are very limited when it comes to getting Chase credit cards. One really interesting thing about this rule is that it kind of applies to business cards and it kind of doesn't. So once you're over 524, you've been approved for more than 5 personal credit cards in the last 24 months, you usually can't get approved for a new Chase business card. But one benefit to Chase business cards is that they do not count towards 524. So for example, if you had been approved for 4 personal cards in the last 24 months, you can get approved for multiple business cards before getting your last and 5th personal card. This means that you can definitely get more than 5 Chase credit cards in a 24-month period, but just make sure you put those business cards in between the personal card applications. Ideally, maybe alternating between a personal application and a business application. Another important Chase application rule is that you can only apply for 2 Chase credit cards in a 30-day period. This applies to both personal and business cards. So just make sure you don't apply too frequently for Chase credit cards or you'll get automatically denied. Now there are some softer Chase application rules that I would say are more just guidelines, but it's something important that I think everybody applying for Chase cards should be aware of. One of those rules is that Chase typically likes to see at least 1 year of credit history before applying for one of their cards. I've never seen a single person get approved for Chase credit cards that had no credit history. Chase is notorious for being picky with who they allow in. So while it's not a hard and fast rule, I would shoot for having at least 1 year of credit card history of any kind. Another guideline that applies to people who have multiple Chase credit cards is that they often want to keep the total credit limit that they've extended to you at 50% of your income or less. So for example, if you're making $100,000 a year, Chase would ideally like to give you $50,000 in credit limits across all of your personal cards. I've heard of plenty of people having more than 50% of their income in personal credit card limits with Chase. And often I find these are people who bank with Chase or have other lines of business with them. But this was actually true for me when I applied for my latest Chase credit card. Initially, I was denied for my Southwest Plus card because Chase said they had extended me too much credit. And it was right there at the 50% of my income mark. But when I called them up and explained I would be willing to transfer some of the credit limit from my other cards to the new card, they approved me. So knowing that rule could come in handy if you ever get denied for a Chase credit card. Mistake number 3 is not understanding how the rewards program works. So if you're interested in Chase credit cards, you probably know they have some really valuable cards and a really valuable points currency. But it's not always easy to know how to use those points and how to get the most out of your points. But Chase points have the potential to give you thousands of dollars in cash back or far more in travel. So it's important to know how to use them. So the 3 main ways to use your Chase points are cash back, the Chase travel portal, and transferring your points to hotel and airline travel partners. Cashback is really straightforward and you're going to get a value of 1 cent per point. The other methods of using your points can double, triple, or more the value of cashback. So I would only ever recommend using cashback if you absolutely need it. The next way you use your Chase points is through the travel portal. Now you'll need a Sapphire card in order to do this. If you have the Sapphire Preferred, you can redeem your points for 1.25 cents per point. And if you have the Reserve, you can redeem them for 1.5 cents per point through the travel portal. And this can be good, especially when it comes to economy flights. But the third method, which is transferring your points to travel partners, is often the best way to get a ton of value for your points. Almost always at least doubling the value of cashback. For instance, when I totaled up all the money I saved on hotels last year by transferring my points, I had saved about $10,000 in hotels, which is way more than I would personally ever spend in hotels in a year. But I had spent just around 400,000 points, and that was worth well over 2 cents per point. So had I used my points for cashback, I would have got less than half the value from those points. And the travel and trips I took with my family are worth far more to me than that cash value would have anyway. So there's really a lot to cover when it comes to transferring points, but if I could only give you one piece of advice, it would be to transfer your points to the world of Hyatt. You can visit Hyatt's website, look at a map of all their properties, and see how much it costs per night in points. So for every 1 Chase point you have, you can transfer that to Hyatt for 1 Hyatt point. So looking at a map of their property, you can easily see how many points it costs per night to stay at some really nice properties. When you compare it to the cashback value, you'll almost always get 2 cents per point. This is because Hyatt has an amazing loyalty program and they really want to reward their members for holding points. If you want to dive into point redemptions further, I recently put out a video called How to Redeem Chase Points for Maximum Value, and you can check that out. I'll link it in the info cards and at the end of this video. So if there's one thing to remember when it comes to Chase's reward points program, default to transferring your points to travel partners for the most value for your points. Mistake number 4 is not understanding upgrade and downgrade paths. So as I mentioned before with the Sapphire cards, you can often upgrade or downgrade your card to a completely different card. And this opens up a ton of options to people, especially those who want to avoid annual fees. I know a lot of people want to avoid annual fees, especially if you're on Team Cashback, and that's totally fine. I was there when I started in my credit card journey. And thankfully, when it comes to Chase, you can often sign up for an annual fee credit card, but be able to downgrade it to a no annual fee credit card. But there are some specifics you'll want to know when it comes to downgrading or upgrading cards. First is that you'll pretty much always need to wait at least a year after holding the card. Second is that you're only allowed to product change these cards within the same family of cards. For instance, if you had one of the Southwest cards and you wanted to downgrade it to the Southwest Plus, you could do that. But you couldn't downgrade your Southwest card to a World of Hyatt credit card. And if you had a Marriott card, you couldn't change it to a Chase Freedom Flex. So basically you need to stay within the same family of cards. The other thing to know about downgrade and upgrade paths is that you often keep the same credit history from that card. So if I sign up for the Sapphire Preferred and then I downgrade it to a Freedom Flex, most of the time it will still appear as the same Chase credit card on my credit report. So there's almost never a good reason to cancel a Chase credit card because you can often downgrade it to a no annual fee card. And when it comes to upgrading cards, it's pretty self-explanatory. just works the other way. If you have a lower annual fee card, you can upgrade it to a higher card, which might have more benefits that you enjoy. Mistake number 5 is getting the Amazon credit card. Now I know this might be a controversial one, but take it from somebody who made this mistake. The Amazon Prime Rewards card was my second Chase credit card, and it came with $100 just for opening the card. No spend required. And I thought at the time I was getting such a great deal. But it turns out that took up one of my 524 slots. And I'm just reaching the point now where I'm almost unable to have any more Chase credit cards because of reaching 524. So while I love getting 5% back on Amazon and I loved that $100 credit, I'm really bummed I got it because now there are a ton of sign-up bonuses that I wish I had that could easily be worth $800 to $1,000. So I get it, if you've got the card or you want to get the card, it's great. But even if you just look at a card like the Sapphire Preferred, which has an 80,000 point welcome bonus, but a $95 annual fee, treating that card like a cashback card would be worth a minimum of $700. And plenty of the hotel cards and airline cards can get you that much value. So take it from someone who made this mistake. I wouldn't recommend using one of your 524 slots if you want to maximize your opportunities with Chase. Mistake number 6 is not activating and maximizing benefits with the Freedom Flex. The Freedom Flex earns 5% back at rotating quarterly categories, and it's a really good card. But a lot of people forget that you have to activate these benefits every single quarter in order to be able to earn that 5% back. And this is a really annoying thing, but it doesn't take that much effort, and a lot of people miss out on the 5% back because they simply didn't activate the categories. So do yourself a favor and never miss out on activating those categories. And you can follow YouTubers like me to make sure you get a reminder to activate your categories. And another mistake when it comes to the Freedom Flex is not realizing that the 5% back category is limited to $1,500 per quarter. But a lot of people get around this by holding multiple Freedom cards. Because you can downgrade one of your Sapphire cards to a Freedom card, if you already held a Freedom Flex and then downgraded, you could have a second Freedom card. I know some people who have 3 or more Freedom cards. Just make sure you sign up for the Freedom Flex welcome bonus before you downgrade. There's a lot of value to be had with these Freedom Flex cards, and having multiple can open up a lot more cash back for you. Mistake number 7, not getting the Ink business cards. Now before you leave this video because you think you can't get a business card, you need to know that almost anyone can get approved for a business card, even if you don't have a business entity. The Ink business cards are so valuable when it comes to getting welcome bonuses, and they have no annual fee. And some of the earning categories on the Ink Cash, for instance, are really great, earning 5% back at office supply stores. This has been a great way for me to get $200 gift cards from Staples with no activation fee, which can make it an easy welcome bonus to get if you use this in moderation. So if you get these cards, which commonly have a 75,000 point welcome bonus, for most people who travel using these credit card points, that's worth at least $1,500 in travel. And as I said earlier, you don't need a business entity set up in order to get these cards. For example, my wife was able to get approved with no business entity by applying as a sole proprietor. She had 0 years in business and 0 business revenue, but because she applied as a sole proprietor, she was able to get approved. A sole proprietor is a business entity that you can apply for using your social security number. And in many states, a sole proprietorship is the default business type for most people starting out. Most of us do things that could qualify as business activity, such as selling things on eBay or Facebook Marketplace. Yes, these can qualify as business activities. But even if you drive for Uber or Lyft, mow lawns, sell jewelry, do graphic design services, or just literally anything besides a 9-to-5 job, you can qualify for these Ink business cards. And if you love the travel game, I think it's even worth trying to do some of these things to earn a bit of extra money and open up the opportunities with the Ink business cards. So if you're interested in applying for any Chase credit cards, I have links to a ton of Chase cards down below in the description. And if you would do me a favor and use those links to apply, those are my referral links and I would really appreciate it. So as you can tell, travel is basically my favorite way to use my Chase points. And I can show you my whole strategy on how to use these Chase points to travel for free, which I do in this video. Please subscribe, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.